Our rear wheel is pulled back and strapped. That is giving Sean a bit more room here. Of course, you'll have to do this for each bolt, so I'll have to remove the strap and turn the drive shaft 1/4 turn and get the next bolt, etc., 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 until those are removed. So we'll be back after we get all the drive shaft bolts out. Your next step is going to be loosening the clamp on this boot on the clutch arm, sliding the boot back, and using a 10mm socket and 10mm wrench and removing the bolt, pivot bolt for the clutch arm. Now the arm can be removed through the bottom, and I'm still hung up on the damn cable end, which means nobody has lubricated that cable end. Well, it's not that bad. So there you have the arm, the spring. In the back of this is a puck, needle nose pliers, orange handle.
Short, long?
Long. You can carefully grab this, remove it, place it down there. We have a bearing here that we're going to clean and relubricate. These bearings, if you can see the cage, it has a lip on one side, rounded on the other. The rounded side goes out, the lip goes in to retain oil better. So we're going to move that over to here. All of this stuff needs to be cleaned up. Our next step is going to be removal of the shifter. You'll see these little clips, frequently called Jesus clips, because they go flying across the fucking room. Our next step is removal of the shifter. You'll see these funky little clips here. You find the side that's curled, you're going to rotate it out. Like such, and then lift it off. And then you can remove this. I suggest putting these back in so that they don't get lost, but I can't do that with one hand. Your next step on this particular bike, and pretty much any of the stuff from the 80s, you're going to need to remove this foot peg in order to have clearance to get the transmission out. So that's going to be our next step, is removal of this bolt. There's a nut behind it, so we'll take that out, the foot peg out of the way. That clears the frame. We're going to tape the frame so it doesn't get scratched, and we're going to get the final bell housing bolts, which are here, and the lower one on the other side. This one here, and then we'll be ready to pull the transmission out of this bike. I'd like to point out at this time that the lower right bell housing bolt is actually a through bolt. You have a 13mm head nut on the end. You'll need a 6mm Allen for the transmission side. You'll notice also that the transmission fin is notched out to facilitate the removal of the bolt. And that's the last bolt we'll do before we remove the transmission. I was getting a little ahead of myself. Sean wanted to point out that on this side, the lower left bell housing bolt, you do not have enough room to get it out with a standard Allen key. While you can loosen it, you'll need to either cut about half of this off or use a ball Allen driver. The ball Allen's nice because it allows you to get into an Allen at an angle. as such. But I would still always loosen it with an Allen key first. These are expensive. These ball Allens do wear out, and you're running the risk of stripping the head of the bolt. Anyway, on the left side, lower left, this is out. You don't really have enough room to get the bolt out of here. So just make sure it's loose, it's unthreaded, and we're going to pull that with the transmission, which is ready to go. But first, tape the fucking frame. You know, if you're doing your own bike and you don't give a shit what the frame looks like, it's beat anyway, fine, don't tape it. Me as a business, I need to tape it, because the last thing I want is somebody complaining that their frame is scratched. And taking these apart to have a frame repainted is not pleasant. This one's already been scratched up before, but we're not going to make it any worse. So we're going to tape it. I use painter's tape first, especially this expensive frog tape. It's really nice and it doesn't lift any paint. Put a layer of that down. It's probably not going to stick because this thing's an oily pig. I follow that up with duct tape, because the duct tape will add a little bit of cushion in case the transmission does bump against the frame. And if this were a flawless frame, it'd probably get 3 coats of duct tape. Transmission is now ready to be removed. You slide it backwards until your splines disengage from the clutch hub. At this point, if you're just inspecting the splines, you can see them from here. And they look good, but we're going to take the transmission out. So we're going to slide it back. Our clutch arm is probably, our clutch rod rather, is probably hung up. And if that's the case, you need to go into the back. You need to grab the center of that puck and pull it back. That's pulling the clutch rod out. Okay, Sean's pulled the clutch rod back a little bit. Now the transmission should come right out. And if you want to grab a hold of that, these aren't very heavy, says the guy holding the camera. What an asshole. There you go. And as you saw, the clutch rod just popped back out. That's what was holding us up in the first place. Now you have your neutral switch. And off we go over to our drain pan. Where we'll be looking at this oil leak a little closer. Our bell housing area is clean. Now you're going to go over each spline tooth with a pick just to make sure there's nothing in there. You could skip this, but if it's gummy, your clutch action is going to suffer from it. So make sure it's clean. There's the Starbarog's paste. This is the proper stuff to use. This is what the factory used. You don't need much. I want you to note how little there is on the end of this toothbrush. Just a very tiny little bit. While Sean's getting that cleaned up, we're going to move over to the transmission, which is also clean. You're going to take the little bit of Starbarog's on your toothbrush and see how nicely that covers. I cannot emphasize enough, don't use too much of this stuff. It's not a matter of being cheap. Excess paste will fling off and get on your clutch and foul your clutch, and you'll have a slipping clutch and not the newer kind used for racing. You'll have the stinky kind that doesn't get you home. So you want to get each tooth covered. And we're going to wipe the excess off as soon as I get this done. You want a little bit right on the very end of the clutch rod as well. You want to work it into the teeth. If you rub the brush back and forth like I'm doing here, come back out and drag it through. You don't want to leave the valley between each spline packed with Starburgs grease, especially Honda Moly if you're using Honda Moly 60. That stuff is quite a bit thinner than the Starburgs, and it flings off the splines much easier than Starburgs. We just had a bike in here recently that had just been done with Honda Moly, and that shit was everywhere. And that's it. That's all you need. You can still see that each spline, you're not packing it full of the paste, and you still have quite a bit on the toothbrush. Now we are ready to slide this back in. We are not going to put any on the clutch. You think, why not? Why don't you do the clutch instead of the transmission? If you do the clutch and you force this toothbrush in, let me get another toothbrush as an example, one that's clean. Here's a nice clean one. Nothing on it. Fresh out of somebody's mouth. Well, it's dry anyway. If you were to do this, if you were to put the Starburgs on the clutch disc while it's assembled, you push that through. When you pull it back out, you're going to end up with some hanging over on the inside of the clutch. That, as soon as you run this bike, is just going to sling out all over the place. So we're just going to get in with a dry one, clean out all the rust and dust. And yes, it is rusty, because the last person to lubricate these splines used that fucking shitty red BMW number 10 grease that the lying bastards at BMW North America said was supposed to replace Starburgs paste. That's a whole different story. Use the Starburgs. Use the right shit. And that's it. We're ready to put this transmission back in. While you're doing your spline lube, if you really know the history of your bike, you don't need to do this, but this bike has 70,000 or so on it, and it's new to the customer, so while the transmission is out, we are going to remove the clutch pack and inspect the clutch friction disc. I am showing you here how to do this without the tool. You can use a pry bar to stop the engine from turning over. Just be careful. You don't need a lot of pressure. You're just levering between the teeth of the flywheel and the aluminum on the engine block. That will allow you to loosen each bolt. Don't remove them yet. You don't want to remove them yet, because these are a balanced unit, and it's pretty rare that you could still see the marks later on, and they're 120 degrees apart from each other anyway. So get some white out. This isn't going to be permanent. You're going to use it. I use this because you can reach way the hell in the back. You want to get this front part. You don't care about the friction disc. You want the rear part and then where it fits onto the flywheel. So paint yourself a nice line right across here. Now you can remove the rest of the bolts for that clutch pack. But remember, this whiteout is not going to hold up in a diesel parts washer or an ultrasonic washer or with brake cleaner. Once we get this clutch pack out, you're going to be better off to get an actual paint stick like such and paint a mark across those parts. Elmer's makes them in an auto parts store, whatever. That'll be a more permanent mark on this, and then the marks will still be there the next time you take this apart.